And then 15, you should recognize 4a squared is a perfect square. So I take the square root of 4a squared. I get 2a, 2a. Square root of 1 is 1. I need a positive 1 and a negative 1. It checks. And then finally, the last two, I don't see perfect squares right away. So, I don't know how to begin this except for GCF. I don't see a perfect square, but if I factor out a 2, I see that they're both even, so I know at least a 2 can be factored out, and that is the largest number that will fit into both a 50 and 32. So I put a 2 on the outside. I'm left with 25x squared minus 16. I'm hoping that you realize that 25 is a perfect square, 16 is a perfect square, so I'm not finished. I'm still going to have to factor completely. So square root of 25, 5x, and 5x. The square root of 16 is the 4. You need a positive 4 and a negative 4. It checks by FOIL. If you would multiply this whole thing out, you would be back to your original. And then finally, number 17, I have to factor out a 3. 3 goes into 75. So I put a 3. I'm left with x squared minus 25. Please don't stop there because you have a perfect square minus a perfect square. X and x, negative 5 and a positive 5. It checks. Okay, for 18, we have to factor this trinomial, so it's a matter of finding the pieces. And yes, it's a multiple choice, but I still need to know how to factor this. I need to make sure my outers and my inners add up to the 7x. So we have the correct pieces, so I need to pick out one of the factors. I see the x plus 5 here. My choice is B. Okay. For 19, really the top part, really only have a 1 in common, but if you're going to need to factor out a negative 1. So if I factor out a negative 1 from the numerator, I'm left with a positive x and a positive 10. If I distribute the negative, I'm back to my original. The denominator is a trinomial, and even though 110 is a relatively large number, it's pretty easy to factor it. You're left with x and x. You need to have your signs to be different, and hopefully the most obvious way of factors of 110, 11 times 10. And that's the one we need so that my outers and inners can add up to a negative 1. I need the 11 next to the negative, the 10 next to the plus, and what's going to happen, and this is why we had to factor out a negative 1, the x plus 10 will cancel out. We're left with a negative 1 up top, x minus 11 on the bottom, and I can see my answer. So I can feel pretty confident that we did everything correctly. Going down here, a probability question. So with probability, if I have two events, I take the probability of the first times the probability of the second. So the first thing, if you read this problem, we are going to be flipping a coin, heads or tails, a 1/2 shot. And then we have a bag of 4 white marbles, 2 blue marbles, 5 green marbles. That's a total of 11 marbles. So this question is asking us, what's the probability of getting a heads? Well, I have a 1 out of 2 shot of getting a heads. So that's my first condition. I need to successfully get a heads. And then if I do that, I will need to reach in and then pull out a green marble. Well, there's 5 green out of the 11. I take the probability of the first times the probability of the second. And the nice thing about multiplying fractions, I multiply the numerator, I get a 5. Multiply the denominator, 2 times 11, I get 22. A 5 out of 22 shot. And it's perfectly fine to express probability as a fraction. It's always going to be a value between 0, not going to happen, and a 1. It will happen. Okay, with this question, it involves a box and whisker plot. We want to know what percent of the data is below 42. So we look here. Hey, here's about 42. You need to realize this is 25%, this is 25%, this is 25%. So 75% of the information is below a 42. So choice C. The next one, number 22, if you remember how to enter these numbers into your calculator using the stat key and edit, This goes in list 1. You can have the calculator tell you all the critical numbers. If you don't know how to use a calculator, you need to rank your numbers. You need to put them from least to greatest, and the median is going to be your middle number. So in this case, my middle number is 18. Then I need to take the median of the lower half. That's going to be the lower quartile, which in this case, halfway between 7 and 11 is 9. 7 plus 11 is 18. 18 divided by 2. I basically take the average here, and I'm going to get a 9. And my minimum is a 6. For the upper half, I take the median of the upper half. That's your upper quartile. Between 25 and 29, we have 27. And the max is 33. Again, your calculator can do this all for you. It can tell you these critical points by using the stat key, edit your list, then you go to stat, calculate, option 1, and you just scroll down and you're going to see these numbers. So then we just have to match this up. The max is 33. This checks here. You have to go through and eliminate these choices. The upper quartile is 27. That checks. My median is 18. That checks. The lower quartile is 9. The minimum. So it matches up with X. Now just be careful with this multiple choice. Normally you think A, B. This is X, which translates to choice D. I'm not a fan of that, but that's how this problem was set up. And just be aware for multiple choice on the keystone and stuff like that. You may see a problem like that. And then 23 also deals with a box and whisker plot. What percent of the data is above a 23? Well, this portion right here is 25% of the data. So answer is C. Okay, number 24 takes us back to solving a system. So this problem, the system's already set up for you. We're dealing with number of pounds of peanuts and almonds. We're told that together we are buying 12 pounds of peanuts and almonds, and then they give us a price. So we have another condition based on paying $4.50 for each pound of peanuts and $7 for each pound of almonds that we bought, and we paid $66.50 for it for total. So you need to know how to solve this system, and the best way is to eliminate. The elimination method, I can get my A's to cancel out by multiplying everything up top by -7. So here's my new equation. I have -7p minus 7a equals -84. The bottom equation stays the same. I simply add my columns. -7 plus 4.5p will give me the -2.5p. Here we get -17.5. To solve for p, I divide both sides by -2.5. We're going to find out that we bought 7 pounds of peanuts. Well, if I bought 7 pounds of peanuts, it's real easy to figure out how many pounds of almonds that I bought. 7 plus a equals 12. Solve for a, you're going to see that it's 5 pounds. Most of you could probably do that in your head. And then make sure you answer the question, how much was spent on almonds? Well, almonds cost me $7 per pound. 7 times 5, $35 just on almonds. The rest of the money was spent on peanuts. Okay, 25 is another probability question. We want to know the probability that we're going to spin twice and we're not going to land on a vowel. So I have 4 out of 6 chances, which is really a 2/3. So a 2/3 shot on the first times a 2/3 shot on the second. I multiply my numerator. I get 4 out of 9. 4 out of 9 is correct. If I had to write this, transform this into a decimal, 4 divided by 9 is 0.4 repeating. And I could also express this as a percent, 44.4%. So 44.4% of not landing on a vowel. Okay, for number 26, everybody's favorite problem where we need to come up with values of b that we could still factor then. So it all comes down to knowing the factors of this number. In this case, it's a -24. I could factor -24 using a +8 and a -3 so that my outers and inners, I add these numbers together and I could get 5. So B could be 5. Another possible combination would be a +12 and a -2. Add them together, I get 10. And since you only have to come up with 3, here's another one, 6 and a -4 adds up to be 2. Now you have other choices too, because technically, even though it's saying positive here, b could be a negative value. I could replace the b with a -5 and still factor it. So just be aware that there's other choices here. Any 3 will work. Okay, here we have a problem. We've seen this problem in our notes, and I like this type of problem. So originally, we have a picture W by W plus 5. So the first question just simply asks us find the area. Everyone should know length times width is the area. W times W plus 5, the quantity. We just have to distribute, and you get W squared plus 5W. So that's the answer to number 27. If we look here, we're going to place a frame around it, and the frame is 1.5 inches. So really, we're going to end up adding 3 inches. So from here to here is 1.5 plus the W plus the 5 plus 1.5. So really, we're adding 3. So this total length is now W plus 8. This side is, again, adding 1.5 plus W plus 1.5. We get a new dimensions of W plus 3. So for number 28, I want to find the area of the picture and the frame together. I use FOIL. I take W plus 3 times W plus 8, the quantity. Use FOIL. Outers and inners will add up to 11W, and I am finished. Okay? And then the last question, you need to recognize the mistake here. So this person tried to factor by grouping. They took 3 times -8, got -24, and they were supposed to come up and replace this -10x with factors of -24 that add up to -10x. Well, unfortunately, the mistake occurred right here in step 1. A positive 12x minus 2x does not add up to -10x. So unfortunately, this is not going to work out. So you can see the correct method. The -10x needs to be replaced with -12x plus 2x. Now draw a line, factor out your GCF, and you're going to see that to write the correct answer, it's going to be a 3x plus 2, x minus 4, and this checks by FOIL. The original problem doesn't check by FOIL. So always check by FOIL when you factor. Okay, I seriously doubt if anyone actually watched this entire video on our Chapter 4, Unit 4 review. But if you did, if you happen to get to the end of this, I'm going to give you a little hint for the bonus. The bonus is going to be a binomial cubed, and I'm going to be asking if you can correctly expand this. So do a real simple one. X plus 3. If I have to cube x plus 3, just keep in mind that we are taking x plus 3 times x plus 3 times x plus 3. Okay, now to fully expand this out and to multiply correctly, what you want to do is take these two factors and multiply them. So this first part, I'm going to leave this as x plus 3, and then I'm going to hopefully do FOIL correctly. So I'm going to have x squared, and then my outers, I'm going to end up getting a 3x. My inside, I'm going to get a 3x. So together, I really will have a 6x, and then the last will be 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, now this should look familiar. To fully multiply this out, then I'm going to have to distribute the x and expand that out, and then distribute a 3. Okay, we've seen that type of problem before. So I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can perfect these type of problems. And hopefully if you did watch this, you can also get more than 100%. You can get the bonus correct. So thank you for watching.